over the years, when talking with participants of Ulab, when talking with participants of various action and innovation labs, multi-stakeholder groups that went through profound journeys of transformation and so on and so forth. And you ask people that in hindsight, okay, tell me about what was the most meaningful, most significant, what you learned, right? That the takeaway that you had personally. Almost always, in fact, I cannot remember an example where it didn't. Among the top 2 or 3 items that are mentioned then in answering that question comes up listening. And what I would not have expected is, so I think maybe 10, 20 years back, I would have thought, well, some people are deep listener and some people are not. What can you do? And what I learned, mainly through Ulab, is that there is a lot you can do. And it basically takes 2 things to transform your level of listening in a profound way, by which I mean to deepen your level of listening from moving from level 1 and level 2 to operating from all 4 levels as needed. And the 2 things are, you need to pick up a practice, right? You need to practice that. And that's why what we suggest in Ulab, kind of to review regularly kind of your levels of listening. That's a foundation, right? So it's a foundation of building and deepening your own capacity. And secondly, you need a little coaching group, right? You need a little space where you can together that have a similar commitment that help each other to progress on that journey in the coaching circle and the case clinics and beyond. So it's those 2 things and really applying it every day and, you know, being brutally honest with yourself, right? When you, for example, see kind of your levels of listening are actually not at all there where you wish it to be. So that's really the foundation for that. So that was the first thing I wanted to say in closing. And the other one is that I wanted to give you a little summary kind of in terms of a gesture, right? So we use social presencing theater here in Ulab. So then allow me to summarize as we move from listening 1 to listening 4, we see a shift of the inner place from that we listen from the center of our own prison, basically our own habits of action and thought, to in listening 1 to listening 2, where our listening is happening, we are at the window, right, between the inside and the outside. We actually watch what's going on outside, but it's subject-object consciousness. So I am here and I watch something else over there. So that's kind of level 2. Level 3 listening is that the place from where my listening is happening is moving beyond my own boundary and is beginning to happen from the place from where another person is speaking from. And listening 4 is this, so that first of all, kind of my boundary, kind of the boundary of my organization is beginning to open up. That's the dotted line there. It means that the distinction between inside and outside, between subject and object, begins to collapse. So that's the first thing that happens there. And then what the next thing that happens is that we connect to a wider field of possibility that begins that we begin to notice around us. So it's kind of that holding space, the field of emerging future possibility that we begin to connect with. And from that connection, something new is being born, right, in that holding space. So something new is beginning to manifest that in the journey forward is showing us the way, is helping us to move into emerging future possibilities. So that's in a visual way how you would summarize the essence of theory U, which is shifting the inner place on that we operate, using the example of listening, right? So listening from the outside looks like the same activity, but whether your inner place of listening is here in the center or in the periphery, or operating from another person, or operating from the surrounding field, makes all the difference, because the patterns of interaction that are generated by this deeper space of listening will yield profoundly different results depending on which level you're operating, kind of which level of relationship you're activating through your level of listening. So that's why it matters, right? And allow me now in the end to summarize the inner gesture, right? So that has to do with shifting the inner place on that we operate in in an outer gesture. So just to give you an indication of what does it mean, level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4. It's just another way of summarizing everything I just said. Listening 1 is basically, remember, kind of that's where we are inside our own prison, right? So that's something like that. So I am actually projecting what I know onto my own surface here. I'm not actually seeing what's going on outside. So that's listening 1. Listening 2 is this. I open up the window and I have kind of a focused attention into a very specific direction that can go here, that can go there. It is sort of limited, but it does open up what I see, and I am connecting now with what actually is going on. Now from level 2 factual listening to empathic listening. The moment I shift listening from factual to empathic, this is what's happening. Notice how the center of gravity of my own activity of listening shifted from here to here. And it's the opening of this organ of perception that allows me to connect on a different level. And now, from empathic to generative listening. So that's a little summary. Obviously, it can be done in many different ways. So that's just kind of my interpretation. But the journey that you saw from this to this, something focused but narrow, to this, and then finally from there to stepping backwards and embracing, being in the service of a larger field of possibility that maybe when we are lucky, begin to attend to and connect with. That is maybe a journey that you have already experienced, in some of your stories of the past, and that in the context of Ulab, we try to understand better, deeper, and try to increase our own capacity to navigate these levels more intentionally, so that as we move forward, our attention and our intention can be ever more aligned.